The room was silent, but not empty. A low humming sound filled the air, like machines breathing. Lights blinked above, cold and white. And then she opened her eyes. Her name was Ilara. She didn't know how long she had been unconscious. She only knew pain. Her right arm was stuck to a cold metal table, not tied, not chained, just stuck, like her skin had melted into the surface. She tried to pull away, her body screaming in pain, but the arm didn't move. Ilara gasped, heart pounding. She looked around. The room was not human. The walls were smooth, silver blue, and glowing with strange symbols. It was not a hospital, not a lab she had ever seen. It was alien. Panic rose in her chest. Her mouth was dry, her throat tight. What happened? Where was she? And then she saw it. A figure in the shadows, tall and thin. It moved slowly, without sound. Its skin was dark gray, eyes deep black, not evil, not kind, just curious. It stepped closer, holding a strange device. Ilara's breath caught. Was it going to cut her arm off? She braced herself, expecting the worst, but the figure only stared. The device buzzed and glowed. Then, suddenly, images flashed inside her mind, memories, her school, her little brother, the burning building where she once saved a stranger. It was reading her. It was inside her thoughts. She tried to fight it, to block it out, but the machine was too strong. It showed her life like a movie. It paused at the burning building, watching with interest. She ran into the fire, dragging someone out, coughing and crying. The alien tilted its head, confused. Why would she do that? Why would a human risk everything for someone else? Then it spoke, not with words, but in her mind. You are strange, it said. You feel pain, yet resist. You are trapped, yet fight. She shouted back, let me go. But no voice came out, only silence. The device glowed brighter. Her arm began to hurt more. Not just on the outside, but inside, like her blood was boiling. She screamed, twisting, kicking, crying. But she didn't give up. Tears rolled down her face, but she kept pulling, kept trying to break free. And then, the alien blinked. It looked afraid. Another figure entered the room, shorter, with silver eyes and long fingers. It whispered something to the first alien. They watched her like scientists watching a wild animal. They didn't understand. They thought she would beg. They thought she would give up. But humans don't give up that easily. She remembered her mother's words. Pain is not the end. It's a message. And now Ilara understood. This was not a prison. This was a test. She was being tested, not her strength, but her spirit, her choice, her will. Suddenly, a screen appeared in front of her. Two options in strange symbols. One glowed green, the other red, and in her mind, a thought appeared, not hers. Choose, amputate and survive, or stay and suffer. She looked at her arm. Shaking, sweating, afraid, she imagined the pain ending, the freedom of release. But then she saw her brother's face again, smiling, waiting. No, she wouldn't give up. Not now, not ever. She chose nothing. She closed her eyes and whispered, do your worst. The aliens paused. Their machines blinked red, confused. This had never happened before. Other species gave up. Others screamed and pressed the green button. But this human. She stayed. They looked at each other, then back at her. The first one stepped forward and placed its hand on her forehead. For a moment, everything went silent. And in that silence, a message came into her mind. You may not survive, it said, but you will be remembered. She opened her eyes, her arm still stuck, the pain still strong. But something had changed. The room was not a prison anymore. It was a battlefield, and Ilara was ready to fight. Ilara didn't sleep, but hours or maybe minutes passed like shadows moving across her eyes. The pain in her arm never faded, but something worse began. Silence broke, not with sound, but with memory. Her eyes were open, yet she saw a green field. A picnic, her brother chasing a red kite. Laughter filled the air, warm and bright. Then static. The memory shook like a broken signal. The kite twisted into fire. The sky turned black, and her brother disappeared. Ilara screamed, but the field melted away. The alien stood before her again, its eyes glowing now, not cold, but focused. It wasn't studying her body anymore. Now it wanted her soul, a thin cable lowered from the ceiling. It touched her forehead gently, like a soft finger, and then her mind cracked open like glass. Memories flooded out, some real, some twisted. Her graduation, her first heartbreak, the night she watched the stars and believed the universe was beautiful. Each moment pulled from her like threads. The alien watched, blinking slowly. But then one memory made the machine stutter. A fire, a screaming voice. Ilara running into a collapsing building. Heat burning her face, she dragged a child out. Coughing, barely breathing, she collapsed outside, covered in ash. Everyone told her she was stupid, but she had smiled, because the child lived. The alien tilted its head, confused again. In its world, logic came first. Self-preservation was survival. But here was a creature who chose others over herself. The alien spoke into her mind again. "You were not rewarded for that choice." Ilara grinned weakly. "No, but I was proud," Static returned. The machine didn't understand. She wasn't reacting like the others. She should be broken by now, afraid, lost, crying. Instead, she looked straight into its black eyes and whispered, "Is that all you've got?" Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the floor beneath her shifted. Her metal table lifted slightly and moved along a glowing path. They were taking her somewhere else. A large chamber opened, filled with glowing orbs floating in the air. Each orb showed faces, alien and human, crying, sleeping, screaming. She saw someone she knew, a classmate, missing for years. His face was frozen in fear. Trapped in a glowing bubble, Ilara's breath caught. They weren't just reading memories. They were stealing them, locking souls into light, preserving fear like treasure. She looked up, angry now. "Why are you doing this?" The alien answered without speaking. "To understand what makes you fight." She stared at the orbs, then at her glued arm. "You think pain is the key?" "Pain reveals truth," the alien replied. Ilara shook her head. "No, it doesn't. Pain hides truth." The machine beeped. Unsure, she smiled again, this time stronger. "You think you're testing me, but I'm testing you too." And for the first time, the alien took a step back. Behind her, the table hissed. The glue began to bubble, not from heat, but from change. Her resistance was doing something to the machine, to the room, to them. Suddenly, a voice whispered from a corner, not alien, not machine, human. "Ilara." She froze. Who said that? No answer, just silence, but she knew she wasn't alone anymore. Someone else had survived, another human. Hope returned like fire in her chest. This wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The voice had vanished, but it left a scar inside her mind, like a flicker of light in a dark cave, small, but impossible to forget. Ilara sat upright now, her glued arm still burning. The alien chamber had changed. The walls pulsed like a living heart, each throb in sync with her pain. The air was warmer, thicker, and something invisible pushed against her chest like pressure under deep water. She tried to breathe slowly, but her ribs ached. Then, a new alien entered. Not tall and silent like the first. This one was cloaked in a shimmer, like light trying to hide its shape. It hovered more than it walked. It didn't speak, but Ilara heard it anyway, not words but emotion. It was curious, and beneath that expectation, it wanted her to give up. It came to watch her break. Without warning, the walls began to move. Panels opened like flower petals, revealing strange devices. Blades, wires, needles, all clean, cold, waiting. They were not for surgery, they were for decision. A screen lit up again in front of her. 2 new symbols, one pulsed blue freedom through amputation. The other red endure, continue, suffer. She stared at her arm, still fused to the alien table. Black veins crawled beneath her skin like lightning. Her fingers were numb now, but her spirit? Still on fire, she didn't press either button. Instead, she laughed, a dry, cracked laugh that surprised even her. "You want me to choose pain or escape?" she said. "But pain is part of escape." The room paused, yes, paused, like the environment itself was confused. Then one needle extended from the ceiling. It hovered inches from her left arm, not glued, not restrained. Still free, a voice returned, robotic now. "Pain increases when there is a choice." The needle plunged into her arm without warning. Ilara bit down on her lip, refusing to scream. Blood dripped down her wrist. She still didn't press the button. "Pain doesn't scare me," she whispered. "Losing who I am does." The shimmering alien tilted, unreadable. The needle withdrew, but a gas filled the room next, sweet and dizzying. Her head spun. Images filled her vision again, her mother's face, then burning, then gone. Was it a hallucination? Or memory? She didn't know anymore, and that was the true test. The pain was no longer just in her arm. It was in her thoughts, in her belief, and still she held on. She whispered her name again and again like armor. "Ilara, Ilara." Then, a sound broke through the fog. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks from the wall behind her. Someone, another human. Not in her head, not part of the illusion. She tried to speak. "Tap once if you hear me." A pause, then tap. Her eyes widened. They weren't testing her alone. There were others, maybe many, and maybe not all were still alive. Ilara's pain faded just a little, not because it stopped, but because she had found something greater, purpose. She wasn't just surviving. She was learning how to fight back, not with weapons, but with her mind, her choices. The table hissed again. Her glued arm twitched. Was it loosening, not from force, but from defiance? The system had expected her to fold, like the others did, but humans weren't made for surrender. They were made for adaptation, and Ilara was about to become something more than they ever expected. Ilara didn't trust the silence anymore. It always came before something worse, like the breath a predator takes before it strikes. The lights dimmed. The humming sound in the walls changed tone. No longer steady, but nervous glitching. The ship itself was reacting, because she was not breaking. The needle wounds on her arm still throbbed, but the glue had weakened. Not melted by force, but by her resistance, and that scared them. Without warning, the table unlocked. Her body dropped onto the floor like a bag of bones. She coughed, her legs shaking, her muscles stiff. But she was free. A small door hissed open in the corner. Bright white light spilled out like a challenge. She stood up, slow but steady, and walked toward it. Every step felt like walking through fire. But she didn't stop. The hallway beyond was quiet, long, and cold. Metal walls lined with dark panels and blinking blue dots. She followed the light, one hand against the wall for balance. Then she heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. This time closer. This time desperate. She turned left and saw them. Pods, hundreds of them, stretching into the darkness. Some were open, some empty, some still filled. Inside the closest one, a boy, eyes closed, body floating in a strange liquid. She gasped, recognizing his face. Devin Lee. Missing 2 years ago from her city. His photo had once been on every news channel. And now he was here, trapped, unconscious, used. She placed her hand on the glass. His fingers twitched in response. He was alive. "Ilara." A voice whispered. She froze. It wasn't in her head. It was real, behind her. She turned. Another pod. Inside a girl, awake, pale, barely breathing, eyes wide with fear. "Help me," the girl said. Ilara rushed to her, pressing every button on the side of the pod. Nothing worked. The screen blinked red. Access denied. Ilara looked around. Each pod had different symbols, languages, species. Some were alien, some were human. Some had been there for years, maybe decades. They were collecting minds, not for healing, not for study, but for something darker. Ilara's heart pounded. This wasn't a research ship. It was a harvesting facility. The shimmering alien appeared again, floating silently at The end of the corridor, it looked at her, no emotion, just calculation. She stood her ground. What is this place? She demanded. It didn't answer. Instead, a screen appeared beside it, showing Earth, showing cities, families, children, then showing humans disappearing, falling asleep and never waking up. They had been doing this for years. You feed off. US, she said. You use pain as fuel. The alien blinked slowly. Emotion is energy, it replied. Fear lasts the longest. Ilara's hands tightened into fists. She looked back at the girl in the pod, who was watching her with pleading eyes, then at the endless rows of lights and lives. No more, she whispered. She saw a control panel nearby, wires leading to the pods, symbols flashing red and green. She grabbed a broken metal rod from the floor and slammed it into the panel. Sparks flew, alarms blared. The pods hissed, lights blinked, and one by one, they began to open. The girl gasped for air, falling into Ilara's arms. Others groaned, waking, confused. She turned back toward the shimmering alien. You think pain is power, she said, but hope is stronger. The alien said nothing. But for the first time, it stepped back. And that's when Ilara knew. She had become the threat now. Not the subject, not the test, but the problem they couldn't control. Ilara opened her eyes again, but this time, she wasn't sure they were hers. The world in front of her looked too perfect, too clean, too bright, like a dream that wore someone else's skin. She stood in her bedroom, the one she grew up in. Sunlight poured through the window, birds chirped, her bookshelf was full, her walls covered in photos, and on her bed her little brother, alive, smiling, calling her name. Ilara, come play. She took one step toward him, then stopped. Something felt wrong. Her arm didn't hurt, her body didn't ache, but that's what made it terrifying. There was no pain, and Ilara had learned. No pain meant it was not real. She turned and looked out the window. Instead of a street or sky, she saw stars. Not just stars, but galaxies spinning in silence. An endless dark outside the glass of her mind. It was a trap, not of metal, not of wires, but of memory. They had placed her inside herself, and they were watching, waiting to see if she'd believe the lie. She backed away from the bed. Her brother's face changed. His smile flickered, stretched too wide, and his eyes turned pitch black. Ilara, he said again, but the voice was layered. Not one voice, but many, the alien speaking through her own blood. Why resist? They asked, why suffer when you can stay here where it's warm? She shook her head. This isn't warmth. It's a cage. The walls cracked. The bookshelf caught fire. The bed melted into wires. The entire bedroom folded inward like paper, and Ilara stood now in the center of a giant black chamber, suspended in space, surrounded by mirrors. Each mirror showed a version of her. In one she was screaming, arm missing. In another she was older, with alien implants, cold and hollow. And in one, she was floating lifeless, eyes wide open. She closed her eyes. No, she whispered. I choose me. The mirror shattered. The floor cracked. And suddenly she was falling, not through air, but through thoughts. Each second felt like a memory being ripped away. She tried to hold on to something real, and then a sound broke through the collapse. Tap, tap. Her eyes flew open. She was lying on cold metal again. But this time she was in a new room. No glue, no cables, just a dim light above. And across the floor someone crawled toward her. A man, face bruised, eyes swollen, but alive. Don't believe what you see, he whispered. They show you what you want, to break what you are. Ilara sat up. The man groaned and leaned against the wall. Name's Ark, he said. Been in their head game for days, maybe weeks. I saw my mom, he added, voice cracking. She's been gone for 10 years. Ilara nodded slowly. They tried the same on me. They made me believe I never left Earth. Ark laughed, a dry, broken sound. They call it the mind cage. Not many make it out. Ilara looked around. The room was bare except for one thing, a door made of glowing glass. It had no handle, only a reflection. But this time, Alara didn't move toward it. She moved inward, focused. She closed her eyes and whispered, "You will not twist my truth." The door opened, not because it unlocked, but because it recognized her mind was no longer breakable. It had grown beyond the cage. She stood, looked back at Ark. "We're not done," she said. "They tested our minds. Now we show them what the human mind can become." Alara didn't walk out of the chamber. She stepped into war, not the kind with bullets and bombs, but the kind fought inside machines, inside minds. A war of thought, will, and fear. Beside her, Ark limped forward, each step like dragging chains, but his eyes held the same fire now, the fire that wouldn't die. The hallway beyond the glass door flickered, as if the system itself was glitching. Their escape wasn't planned, it wasn't allowed. It was forcing the ship to change, to react. They moved through a new sector, walls curved and strange, covered in alien symbols that moved like living ink. Alara touched one panel, it sparked, and for a second, she saw everything. A flash, thousands of beings across the galaxy, captured, connected, drained. Each species stronger than the last, yet none of them had done what she just did. None of them had fought back with belief. Only humans had tried, only humans had survived. Ark reached out, pointing at a strange pod on the wall. "This is a control unit," he whispered. "Their tech links to thought signals. Maybe we can use it." Alara nodded. She placed her hand on the pod. It was cold, but then it warmed. She felt something move inside her skull. Then a voice, not alien, not hers. A combination of both. "You were not designed to control," it said. "You are emotional, chaotic, unstable." She smiled. "Exactly." The pod lit up, symbols scrambled, sirens echoed in the distance. Alara's thoughts were being read, but now she was reading them back. She wasn't just resisting the system anymore. She was rewriting it. Ark grabbed a rod from the floor, smashed a nearby panel. Doors flew open around them, revealing more pods. Some humans, some not, all unconscious. "They need time to wake up," Ark said. "But the ship's defenses will come fast." Alara turned. "I won't let it stop us." She walked into the central chamber. A dome of black glass and floating lights. The very brain of the ship. Floating above her was a massive sphere, alive, breathing, pulsing. She could feel it thinking. It wasn't just a computer. It was an alien mind, ancient and powerful. It spoke in pure thought. "You cannot change the purpose. The ship collects, learns, improves. You are raw data, nothing more." Alara stepped closer, her voice calm but fierce. "No, I'm the bug in your code, the crack in your glass, the story you can't delete." She reached out and touched the core, and suddenly everything stopped. Time slowed. She stood inside the alien network, infinite pathways of light and pain and knowledge. It tried to drown her in information, but she pushed back with a memory. Her brother laughing, her mother holding her, the sound of wind through trees. The core trembled. It didn't understand. No other species had used emotion as a weapon. The system began to fail. Doors opened all across the ship. Pods unlocked. Survivors fell to the floor gasping. The humans weren't just escaping now. They were waking up. Ark ran to her, yelling, "You're breaking it." She didn't answer. Her eyes were locked with the core. One last message flashed across her mind. "If you continue, this ship will fall." She whispered, "Good." The lights exploded. Alarms screamed. The ship shook. And the last thing Alara heard was the voice of the alien core. Not angry, not afraid. Impressed. "You are dangerous," it said. "Not because of strength, but because you believe." Alara stood in the wreckage of a dying ship, and for the first time in hours or maybe days, the silence felt like her own. Smoke curled through the halls like forgotten breath. Sparks rained from the ceiling, the alien lights that once watched her with cold eyes were now broken, flickering, blind. She was bleeding. Her legs weak, her body burned, but her mind was sharper than ever. Behind her, dozens of pods hissed open. Humans fell to the ground gasping, coughing, crying. Others, non-human, looked around in shock, but one thing was clear: they were all free because of her. Ark limped to her side, face bruised, eyes filled with awe. "You did it," he said. Ilara didn't answer. She was staring at a screen, half broken. Red symbols flashing over and over again. Auto-destruct. Initiated. Time. Remaining. 5 o'clock. They didn't want her story to escape. They wanted this place to vanish her. The survivors, everything. She could run. There was an escape pod chamber not far. The coordinates still showed a path to Earth. She could make it alone. But she looked back. The freed prisoners, barely able to stand, some crying, some silent, some holding hands as if they hadn't felt touch in years. And Ilara knew, humans don't leave the weak behind. Not on Earth, not in space, not anywhere. She turned to Ark. "We're not done," she said. "Get the others moving." Ark frowned. "There's not enough time. We'll never make it." She smiled, bloody but brave. "Then we'll make time." She ran to the central control panel, sparks dancing across her fingers. Typed commands blindly, rewiring what little still worked. The system resisted, but it was tired, and so was she. But humans don't stop when they're tired. They stop when they're done. A second screen lit up: manual override. She bought them 4 more minutes, but it came at a cost. Her escape pod now locked. No way out for her. Ark realized it first. He shouted her name, ran to her. "You locked your pod." He yelled, "Why would you do that?" Ilara turned to him. "To give you a chance," she said. "To give them a chance." Tears filled his eyes. "You're not a soldier." She nodded. "No, I'm something worse. I'm a human who won't give up." Ark tried to stop her, but she stepped back. "Go," she said. "Guide them out." He hesitated, then saluted her, not as a soldier, but as someone who had just met a hero. The survivors followed Ark, running through flickering halls. One by one, they vanished into the escape bay, and Ilara stood alone, face lit by red warning lights. She looked at the alien core, now silent. "You wanted to understand us," she whispered. "Now you do." She closed her eyes, not in fear, but in peace, and then blackness. But that wasn't the end, because somewhere, far away, a pod crash-landed on Earth. Dozens climbed out, survivors, changed, scarred, but alive. And when they spoke of what saved them, they didn't talk about weapons or strength. They spoke of one girl who chose to stay, who chose all of them over herself. They said her name with pride. They said her name like a promise: Ilara, the human who didn't give up.